In a certain part of Academy City in the middle of the night, a white-haired boy known as Accelerator is filling his shopping cart with an unusually excessive amount of black coffee cans. After getting outside of the store, he is met by a group of delinquents who tries to attack him, though obviously to no avail. He mentions to himself that since his defeat in the hands of Toma, he is no longer considered the strongest in Academy City, even though his powers still remain and that he is still a level 5. While walking, he passes by a certain apartment complex and is annoyed by the noise created by two certain characters. He uses his vector powers to mute out any sound from him as he continues to walk alone. However, unbeknownst to him, he is being followed by someone. After a while, the person comes close enough to him for him to notice and uses his vector powers to unmute sound. With this, Accelerator discovers that it is from a voice of a little girl who calls herself Misaka twice. Annoyed by her, Accelerator continues to walk along, ignoring the girl, though she continues to try and talk to him, telling him that she has been trying to get him to notice her all this time. Suddenly, Accelerator remembers the name Misaka. Accelerator removes the cloth from the girl himself and sees that the girl is completely naked, making her cry. The girl says that she is the 20,001st clone to be produced for the Sisters Project and says that her codename is Last Order. She continues by saying that since the experiment has been nullified, she was apparently released from her tank in the middle of the incubation process, as is the reason why she appears so small in comparison to the other clones. Last Order states that since Accelerator has connections with the researchers, she could use him to contact them for her. Accelerator gives an immediate response to her that he is not interested, which somewhat disappoints Last Order since she has nowhere else to go. Apparently feeling sorry for her, Accelerator lets Last Order follow him to his apartment building. When they get to his room, they discover that Accelerator's room has been trashed. Still uncaring and yet somewhat expecting of this, Accelerator lays down his purchases and proceeds to sleep on a relatively intact couch to rest. Last Order, happy, goes and lies on Accelerator's surprisingly intact bed and warns him not to touch her in the middle of the night, much to Accelerator's annoyance. Morning shines through the curtains of Accelerator's room as he awakens from his slumber. Here he discovers that Last Order is still in his room and is hungry, asking Accelerator to cook some food. Accelerator and Last Order go to a restaurant for their breakfast. While Last Order happily asks herself what meal to get, Accelerator notices a person in a white lab coat outside of the restaurant parking lot. It is Amai, according to Accelerator, who is wondering what he is doing there. Amai notices Accelerator's gaze and quickly gets into his car to try and vacate the premises. While eating, Accelerator reminds Last Order of what he did to the clones. Hearing their conversation turning serious, Last Order stops eating and responds to Accelerator. Last Order states that since she is connected to all the clones, she of course knows. Last Order states that she was taught the value of being a clone, and even if a single clone dies, there's no way the entire Misaka network would disappear. Last Order says that without Accelerator, the experiment would never have been proposed and that souls would have never been injected into the lifeless Misaka clone, and she thanks Accelerator for it. Thinking that Last Order is joking, Accelerator smirks and reminds her that he enjoyed killing the clones. However, Last Order counters by saying that Accelerator is lying and says that Accelerator didn't want to do the experiment in the first place. Accelerator gets mad at her observation and says that the fact that he kept continuing with the experiment means that he thought nothing of the clones' lives. Accelerator stands up to leave. However, after turning his back, he discovers that Last Order has been overcome with something. Last Order states that she in a condition where her body is incomplete as such her current condition. Accelerator walks in familiar places for a while and arrives at a research institute. In a dimly lit and messy room with several computers running sits a woman. She reminds Accelerator that he didn't need to break down the entrance as his ID card is still valid. Accelerator later asks Yoshikawa Kikyu where the experimental body adjustment manual for the sisters is. Accelerator asks about Last Order. Kikyu explains, saying that the special experimental instance known as the Last Order. She states that Last Order was never made to be a part of the experiment to begin with. The point of the sisters was to be killed by Accelerator, and that it requires having 20,000 battles for the experiment to finish. Kikyu continues and says that Last Order is not part of the experiment, but is the command center of the Misaka network. That is the reason why her development has been held up, and why she took care of her even after the experiments was terminated. Kikyu, however, states that 7 days ago, someone has overwrote her program with malicious code. Because of the effect of the malicious code, Last Order ran away from their laboratory as a response. Kikyu continues by saying that the virus will activate tonight, which would spread and infect through the Misaka network and will make it go out of control, where they'll initiate an indiscriminate attack against all humans. Hearing this, Accelerator only laughs at the interesting situation and asks who the suspect is. Kikyu states that the most likely culprit is Amai, which surprises Accelerator after remembering his strange behavior in the restaurant parking lot. She tells that there are two things he can choose to do now: capture Amai and force him to talk about the virus structure and resolve the incident, or secure Last Order, who bears the virus in her mind, and put her back into the incubation tank. The scene cuts to Accelerator running in the streets of Academy City, grasping in his hands Last Order personality files. Accelerator arrives at the place. Here, he is told that a man in a white coat has taken away Last Order. Accelerator contacts Kikyu and report to her about the situation. Accelerator asks why Amai would take Last Order if the virus activating would occur even without doing anything. Knowing that Amai is still inside the city, Accelerator smirks and states that humans' actions become more simplistic when they lose their comfort zones. With that, Accelerator cuts Kikyu off and proceeds to find out where Amai. Meanwhile, near an abandoned research facility, a mysteriously out-of-place yellow car sits in desolation. Besides him is Last Order, breathing heavily and having electrodes stuck to her with a notebook computer on her lap monitoring her condition. He pleads to Last Order to be alive at least until after the virus gets activated. Suddenly, an omen of doom appears before Amai. Slowly coming towards him in black and smiling is the Accelerator. Out of sheer terror, Amai tries to desperately start his car. He floors his car towards the still smiling Accelerator. However, it is all for nothing, as Accelerator's powers easily crumples his car, making sure that Last Order is safe in the process. Smiling still, Accelerator taunts Amai, asking how he should play with him. Amai desperately tries to get out of his car, but is stopped by Accelerator, who tells him to calm down. Amai later faints. Seeing Last Order's current state, Accelerator asks if they can stop the virus using only the equipment Amai has. Kikyu, however, states that is not possible, as to overwrite the virus, they would need a specialized incubation tank and a testament machine. During the conversation, however, Accelerator begins to notice a distinct sound coming from Kikyu's line. Here, Kikyu reveals that she is heading towards where Accelerator is using a car, as it would save more time, and reveals that she has finished 80% of the analysis of the virus code infecting Last Order, and that she'll make it by midnight. Suddenly, a voice can be heard from Last Order and starts to speak in gibberish and moving erratically. Almost instantaneously, several warning signs begin to pop up on the notebook computer screen. Concerned, Accelerator asks Kikyu what's going on. Hearing Last Order's ramble over the line, Kikyu concludes that the virus has begun its preparations to activate, and states that the leaked information that the virus will be activating on 12 midnight was probably a red herring. With alarms going off, Kikyu carefully says to Accelerator that he is the only one who is able to save the situation. Kikyu tells him the most obvious and only single thing he could do in this situation: the elimination of Last Order. Suddenly, Accelerator realizes something and contacts Kikyu regarding it. Having Last Order's personality file before the virus infection, Accelerator asks, since he can control brain cells, is there a possibility that he can manipulate Last Order's personality files? Realizing his plans, Kikyu asks Accelerator if he is planning to use him and his powers as a substitute for a testament machine. She tells he can't. Accelerator, however, disagrees with her and states that if he can use Reflect, Redirect, then he can also be able to manipulate and plugs in the USB containing Last Order's data file into the portable digital. Kikyu continues to argue with Accelerator, but he ignores her and throws away his phone. Using the portable digital terminal device, Accelerator completely memorizes Last Order's data file before her infection with the virus, and concludes that he will just simply get rid of all the code in Last Order's brain that doesn't match the previous data file and say that it is a piece of cake. After destroying the portable digital terminal device, Accelerator touches Last Order's forehead. With that, he begins his operation. Accelerator compares the pre-infection date to the data within Last Order's head. However, he realizes that if he gets rid of all the code, then Last Order would be restored to her state the week prior or the week before she met him. He executes the command to destroy the mismatched code using his powers, and slowly the warning messages on the notebook computer disappear one by one. Last Order begins to respond to Accelerator's tampering, as she starts spouting random words and codes and moving erratically as well. While erasing the codes, Accelerator ponders to himself what he is erasing along with the virus, and concludes that it is better for her to forget anyway. Suddenly, as if on cue, Amai regains consciousness and points a gun towards Accelerator, telling him not to interfere. Accelerator is gripped with fear for having a gun pointed at him. He has used up all his processing power in order to delete the virus inside of Last Order's mind, and doesn't have the computational capacity left for a redirection. Accelerator reflects with himself he could take his hand off Last Order, as so he can regain the capacity for a reflection, which would then make him invincible. He doesn't, and is shot by Amai in the middle of his work, lamenting on how he was too naive at the thought that he, a villain, could save someone and start all over again. Having shot the accelerator, Amai laughs maniacally for having brought down the strongest Esper with a gun and still living. However, his laughing stops as soon as Last Order announces that the code that Amai injected into Last Order has code break error code. Due to the error, Last Order deems that the processing of the command to be sent to the Misaka network where it would force the sisters to attack humans has been aborted. Seeing the failure of his operations, Amai points a gun at the unconscious Last Order. Angered that his fears were correct, Amai fires the handgun. Suddenly, a hand emerges and manages to protect Last Order, reflecting the bullet back towards Amai's handgun, destroying it and injuring his hand. Writhing in pain, Amai turns his head and sees his worst fears come to fruition. The accelerator has survived and has managed to compute a reflection right before the bullet reached his brain. Accelerator emerges holding the gaping and bleed hole in his head and gives a sinister smile. However, Accelerator finally succumbs to his wounds and falls to the ground. Seeing Accelerator fall to the ground, Amai reluctantly checks his body and concludes that he has indeed not moving and with his powers not working. With that, Amai takes another gun from his lab coat and points it at Accelerator. He mocks Accelerator, saying that in the end he didn't have the ability to finish off jobs just like heroes and states that they are rotten regardless. Then a small gunshot rang out and Amai began to bleed. Here, a woman named Yoshikawa Kikyu holds a small pistol with her. She was the one who shot Amai. Having been shot, Amai falls down once again. Kikyu takes the naked and unconscious Last Order in the back of her car, where an incubation tank awaits her. Amai comes to once again and tries to sit up, however, he sees Kikyu loom over him. She aims and pulls back the hammer of her pistol, ready to shoot to kill Amai. Kikyu continues on by saying that Amai need not worry about Accelerator, as he knows someone special amongst his acquaintances. A person with frog face, though he is called the Heaven Canceller by people, is someone who'd still save Accelerator's life. Kikyu then points her gun on Amai's chest, however, at the same time as this, Amai pulls out his gun and points it at Kikyu's own chest as well. Kikyu regains consciousness and discovers that she is in a hospital of a certain frog-faced doctor, the Heaven Canceller. Here, Kikyu is surprised that she has survived, to which the frog-faced doctor rhetorically asks who she thinks performed the surgery. Kikyu states that she thought that she was shot in the heart at point-blank range, to which the frog-faced doctor corrects her by saying it was actually a coronary artery extending from the heart. However, he states that she was pretty much dead on the spot, if not for the efforts of that kid, the Accelerator. The frog-faced doctor continues by saying that Accelerator has sustained damage to his frontal lobe and has had his language and computational ability affected. Hearing this, Kikyu tries to ask if it affects Accelerator's ability as well. However, the frog-faced doctor cuts her off, saying that making something work that is not working anymore is his policy. Before leaving, the Heaven Canceller asks what she's going to do now as the higher-ups found out about the incident and has finally closed down the research facility, and the experiment completely terminated. She was fired. Hearing this, Kikyu is disheartened that she can't live as a researcher anymore. The winds pass by and moves the curtains of a certain hospital, where a certain white-haired boy wearing a collar is sleeping soundly, while the girl by the name of Last Order is beside his bed sleeping as well. Yoshikawa Kikyu is there, as well as Yamakawa Aiho, the latter asking the former to confirm if they are the one that she will be taking care of, to which Kikyu says yes. Then the sliding doors are opened, and they turn to look the frog-faced doctor, smiling at them. The end, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to not miss the Certain Scientific Accelerator next.